This passage, which ends Act 1, Scene 1, I would sell to you as a scene in which night clashes with day, contrasts with day, this world clashes with the next, and also, I would suggest, the present clashes with the past. It's also, as we reach the end of it, a plot point, a chapter that ends with that kind of ball that knocks on the next ball, passes on the energy to the next scene. That idea, shall we tell Hamlet about what we've seen? And to set up that receptive audience for all the things that have happened. Lots of the language here is anticipatory as well. We get such words, particularly in this scene, as harbingers and precurse, and prologue. The idea that everything's yet to come. We're very early on what's going to be a long, long narrative. That narrative is signposted almost by the figure of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was the subject of Shakespeare's other play, one of the other great plays of 1599, the one called Julius Caesar, in which the idea of regime change is very much in the air. So if you imagine an Elizabethan audience wondering what's going to happen next, that was a play in which Shakespeare did something similar. Julius Caesar you could see as a kind of aberration in nature, a kind of freak occurrence, someone who was born half deaf and from a caesarean section, almost as someone who wouldn't have existed. And if you bear in mind the Renaissance humanism of the play, with its grounding in that Cicero text we often talk about, De Officiis, concerning duties. Julius Caesar is, in that world, a shocking presence. And it's one way in which they express their shock. It's quite easy as well to connect the figure of Julius Caesar, that spectre from the past, that kind of bogeyman, eat your supper or Julius Caesar will get you, as someone to compare to the kind of dreadful, as in full of dread, awesome, as in full of awe, figure of Hamlet's intimidating father. Intimidating enough if you believe in Richard Eyre's reading, when he was alive, let alone when dead. So we have that. We also have, as you can notice here, the appearance of the ghost. Someone breaking through that halfway house between the dead and the living, anticipating the ghost's own words about being doomed to walk the earth. We have that idea of purgatory as well. The idea that there is a kind of safe space, if you will, where nothing bad can happen, where we hear about the idea that in the midwinter, wherein our Saviour's birth is celebrated, this bird of dawning singeth all night long, and that no spirit dare stir abroad, that there's almost a kind of holy time when we are spared this kind of vision, but not tonight. Now, I've said that it's a clash between the past and the present with that figure of Julius Caesar. Let's also look at the moments you could almost call crepuscular, that idea of the bird singing. The crepuscule, you might know, or crepusculus, is to do with dawn, to do with twilight, and to do with making a noise. So we have the language of daybreak, of and bear in mind that in Shakespeare's Globe you would have to use that kind of rich language. We could call it scenographia, scenographia, scene painting. And we have it here with morn in russet mantle clad. Just note the way that poetry is toned up, tweaked up to 11 with that language, as well as the arresting vignette of the bird that sings all night long. So we have there, in the very language of the words, a kind of break between darkness and light. And with that idea of light, that idea of illuminating Hamlet about what secrets these guards have kept, and actually will continue to keep. Now, before we leave that, let's look again, as we slightly did when the ghost appeared in our first extract, let's look at the interface, the interchange between human beings who are alive and the ghost. Again, and you can almost tell from the way it's presented on the lines, speak to me, oh speak, that this is a scene where there is silence, and a very pointed silence from the ghost. It's almost as if the ghost will only speak to Hamlet, will only reveal his thoughts to his son. But look at the anaphora. If thou hast any sound or use of voice, speak to me. Clearly no use of sound or voice. If there be any good thing to be done, that may to thee be ease and grace to me, speak to me. Dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum. And again that pause. Now notice, it's a rule of 3 that has 4. It's almost as though the music of it outshoots the bar lines, as though Horatio's desperation to be heard is relentless. And notice again this strange, not only verbal, cerebral, but also physical exchange with something that is not of our world, not of our substance. Shall I strike it with my partisan, that long spear or halberd that could presumably do some damage to a mortal, and perhaps mortal damage to a mortal, but will presumably make no difference to the ghost, except to say that the ghost does actually leave when threatened with this big chunk of wood and metal. We do have a kind of back and forth between this world and the next, embodied by that metaphorical language, by the heightened poetry, and also between Shakespeare's present of writing Hamlet and his own past, the guy with the box office hit that was Julius Caesar, and again appealing to that threshold, that liminal moment that is also going to be the regime change anticipated by the audience, the moment when their own monarch has to move on and yield to an uncertain future.